Hi, I'm Joe Lindley and I'm with cravingsugar.net, and the topic of this video is rehabilitating dietary fat. And what I mean by that is that somehow dietary fat, the fat you eat every day, has gotten a tarnished image. And kind of how this comes up is that I'm on a low carb diet, and a low carb diet has a good reputation. People talk about it all the time. But then when you get into it a little further and you say, well, a low carb diet is actually a low carb high fat diet, or a low carb moderate fat diet, as some people call it, people pull back and go, oh, you mean you got to eat more fats? Well, I don't know about that. That's bad for you. You know, there seems to be this bad attitude towards fat. And it doesn't make any sense, because dietary fat is a normal part of what we eat. We've been eating it for millions of years. So why all of a sudden is fat bad for you? And looking at this, I started to look at my own life, and I remember years ago when I was in high school. Actually, my father got transferred to Germany. We went there, and of course the whole family went. And one of the first things we noticed was the fast food that's real popular then, and probably still now, is a bratwurst. You know, it's a white sausage about this long, comes with a little brötchen, a little piece of bread, and a dab of mustard, and everybody has that for lunch there. And we saw those things and, oh, that's disgusting. The whiteness, because it's all fat. Just, how could anybody eat that? Just seemed so unhealthy. It didn't taste good, blah, blah, blah. Well, we tried it, of course, and it was wonderful. But the point is, it's a staple of their diet. And I actually worked in a German warehouse with all Germans, just a few Americans. And the typical working man in Germany will bring for lunch the heavy German bread made into sandwiches, and in between the bread is just the grease from those bratwursts when they fry them. And it sounded like, oh, how could that be? And now I realize, I didn't realize then, but now I realize that they were getting energy from that fat that was in that grease, and that's how they got their energy. And it was a perfectly healthy way to eat. But still, people react negatively. I mean, I've been on a low carb diet for quite a while. My wife still, when I fry bacon, I don't fry bacon that often, but when I do, she goes, oh, you're having that bacon again. Like it's going to kill me or something. It's not. And so there's this negative attitude about fat. And it's pervasive. It's all over the place. And what happened really, and why we have this, I need to explain that. Why we have this sort of negative attitude about fat is back in the 70s, the government felt like there was, the U.S. government, felt like there was an epidemic of heart disease. They were seeing more and more people die of heart disease. And of course there wasn't, it turns out later. They just got the numbers wrong on this, but they thought there was. So there was a big push to do something about it. And so they got some people together. They had all kinds of committees and meetings and all this stuff. And there was one pretty influential fellow, his name was Keyes, came up with a simple-minded idea. You know, if you eat more fats in your diet, then that's going to cause more cholesterol, which is fat-based, to be floating around in your bloodstream, which will then lead to heart disease. Seemed simple enough. So he started pushing that, and he developed a study which kind of proved that, at least people thought. And then other people, though, were opposed to this. And so there were actually two camps, because some other people were saying, hey, it's carbohydrates, it's not fats. And so there's a big rigmarole between these two. And the government had to do something, though, and they said, we've got to do something rather than nothing. So they finally just said, okay, we'll say it's fat. So they decided fat was bad. And that study, by the way, was later proven to be totally flawed. So they actually came out with this statement that fat is bad without really any proof to it. And this is back in the 70s. And they started saying you've got to remove fat, and all the low-fat craze came about. You've got low-fat yogurt, low-fat cookies, low-fat everything. Unfortunately, that was really bad, because when you remove fat, people still have to eat something. And food without fat just tastes terrible, so they put carbohydrates in it. They put sugar in it to make it taste better, and that was a bad idea. But anyway, they started this big low-fat craze, and as studies started coming along, it was very interesting, because the government kept on trying to say, hey, let's really prove this. Let's do some studies. But they never could come up with a study that proved that low-fat really helps you, or at least much. In fact, an interesting story is that the Surgeon General in the late 80s commissioned 3 clinical studies to be done on the benefits of a low-fat diet. And all these 3 studies came out with similar results. And basically, the results were, between all 3 of them, that if you're an adult and for the rest of your life, now I'm talking about the rest of your life, years and years and years, go on a low-fat diet, that your life expectancy will increase by 3 days to 3 months. Now, did you hear that? In other words, you're going to have a lousy food, no fat, all this low-fat stuff, which doesn't taste very good. For the rest of your life, you're going to get 3 days or 3 months. No thanks. Pass me the bacon. I could not. I would never make that trade. And so when the studies came in, these guys that did the studies wanted to publicize it, and the Surgeon General didn't want to publicize it because it would make them a laughing stock. Here they're getting the whole nation to switch over to low fat, and all they're getting out of it is maybe 3 months. I mean, if I'm 85 years old, three months doesn't make much difference at all. So they kept on coming up with more and more studies that actually proved that fat is really good for you, and along came with this the low-carb diets, which are higher in fat. And so more and more people prove that you can have a really good healthy diet with fat as long as you keep the carbohydrates down. But the government has persisted, and even today, the government is still saying low fat is the correct way to go. And what's exasperating about it is you could have a really good low carb diet, but then once somebody finds out it's a higher fat, they go, oh no, I can't do that because it's low fat. Wow. That's what's upsetting about this. So anyway, I wanted to pass this on and suggest that you look into it. The government is still low fat, so you'll see them saying low fat. But do your own research. Look into this yourself and make your own decision about what's the right kind of diet for you. And consider the low carb and paleo diets because they're lower in carbs and higher in fat, but they're quite healthy for you. I've included along with this video on YouTube and also on my website some links you can go to do your own investigations, and I encourage you to do that. So anyway, that's the topic for today, and I appreciate your time. Hope to see you again. Thank you.